Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please support. Counsel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 2 young adults came to the defendant in their father's home on April 13th of 2018. One young adult left their father's home alive on April 14th, 2018. How do we get to that place? Early in March of 2018, the defendant's father and Summer Johnson Fleischauer and Chase Fleischauer's grandfather, Rod Fleischauer, unfortunately passed away. Chase Fleischauer, the defendant's son, is the young man who didn't leave that house alive that day, who left that house in the care and custody of the state of Croy County. Summer Johnson Fleischauer, his older sister, she's the young woman who did leave that house that day, left her father's home alive, but shaken for the rest of her life. They are the defendant's children by their mother, April Johnson, who, with her children, parted from the defendant many years ago. On April 11th of 2018, the defendant telephoned his eldest daughter, Summer Johnson Fleischauer. Not a completely usual event. They hadn't been especially close. She felt special when he asked her if she would come to his house with Chase, her brother, and help make arrangements for a celebration of their grandfather, Rod Fleischauer's death. At the time, Summer, who's now graduated, was attending the University of Minnesota. And she contacted her brother Chase, her younger brother, her best friend, who was attending St. Cloud State, where he lived with a couple of good friends, Alex and Kyle. Good friends since high school. And convinced Chase to come with her to their father's home to talk to them about their grandfather, Rod, who they were very close. They'd kind of be like a real family. So on April 13th, 2018, Chase drove to his sister's house, like a lot of college kids, with his laundry, where she was living in Minneapolis, and she drove her van to the defendant's house. Now, the defendant's house in the town of New Richmond is one that he had just recently moved into 6 or 8 months earlier during the summertime of 2018. And normally it would be about a 45-minute to an hour drive, and it was snowing. In April of 2018, there was a snowstorm here in western Wisconsin. The weather was turning pretty bad. But they got there around 6:30. They expected that they would have dinner. The defendant had prepared some kind of chicken dish, greeted them at the door, ready to start drinking with them. Someone was like, I'm really hungry. I think we should eat first. So the house is at 1489 142nd Street in the town of Richmond in St. Croix County. So it's in a development, but it's in a development removed from a town area. The house is a bi-level, so one walks in from the outside. There's a door to the garage to the left. There's a staircase that goes down to a lower level where there's like a living room on the right side, and then there's a bedroom and another office type area and a laundry room down in the lower level. And then again from the landing where one might go to the garage, One then goes up the stairs, and at the upper level, there's a living room area and a dining area and a sliding door out to a deck. There's a kitchen area that has an island, and then there's a walking space between the island and where the stove and the refrigerator and the dishwasher are. And one would turn from the island area to look down the stairs toward the front door of the house. Summer had hardly ever been there before, but they drank, they ate, they had a good time, they talked about their grandfather, they looked at pictures, they talked a couple of times together. Summer Johnson Fleischauer showed her father her new tattoo on her leg. He acted like he didn't like it, but he texted it to his girlfriend, who thought it was nice. Summer Johnson Fleischauer took Snapchat photos of their time together. Chase Fleischauer was Snapchatted wearing a black t-shirt and initially his red Savoy sweatshirt. Eventually he took the sweatshirt off and he was wearing just the black t-shirt. The defendant was wearing a sort of grayish colored t-shirt distinguished by the printing on it, which read, "You're killing me, Smalls." During the course of the evening, there was more drinking, beer, hard alcohol, there was talk of politics, there was talk of guns. The defendant had inherited a bunch of guns when his father passed away. Summer Johnson Fleischauer saw no guns that night or into the early morning hours of April 14th. During the course of this conversation, Summer mentioned something to her father and her brother about some sort of harassment or abuse that she had been subjected to by some guy at her school. And this led to an angry exchange between them all about the defendant thinking that her brother Chase should be protecting her from people, and Summer saying, "Hey, I can take care of myself." The defendant texted to his girlfriend that he and his kids were fighting. Sometime after whenever the last Snapchat photo was taken and sent, around 1:30 in the morning on the morning of April 14th of 2018, Summer Johnson Fleischauer went down to the bedroom at the lower level, which had two twin beds set up for her and her brother to sleep in. Around 1:30 or so, she, from bed, sent her last Snapchat. Now, as I said, when Summer went to bed, she had seen no gun. When Summer went to bed, Chase Fleischauer had no injuries. And at no time, while Chase and Summer were at the defendant's home, did anyone else come there. It was always, for the entire time we're talking about, the three of them at that house. But sometime between the time she sent the last Snapchat and may or may not have dozed off to sleep, and about 4 o'clock in the morning, she heard ruckus upstairs. She heard noises upstairs in the kitchen, dining room area of that upper level. And she was in a bedroom on the lower level off that way. What did she hear? Her brother Chase, strapping young man, about 31-inch arms, right-handed. Before he was shot, a noise, a ruckus that Summer Johnson Fleischauer heard ended up causing him a bruise above his left eye. The TKI, those are burst blood vessels in his eyes, consistent with strangulation, as is a long scratch on the side of his neck. There are bruises on his face, on his cheeks, all over his lips, scratches on his fingers, and bruises and scratches on his left arm, and blood coming out of his ear as a consequence of a fractured skull that he suffered while his sister was drowning. No one else in the house, ladies and gentlemen. No one. Only the defendant. In spite of all those injuries, all of which happened before he was shot, Summer heard her brother say, "I would never hit my father." In spite of that, that is father. She heard a loud noise. She ran upstairs to the landing and then up to the kitchen, dining area, living room level of this bi-level house. The defendant's nowhere to be seen. There was Kayle Fleischauer, her little brother, laying on the floor of the kitchen in front of the island, shot in the head, laying in his own blood by himself. She screamed for her father. She screamed for help. She's completely freaking out. No defendant. Finally, the defendant appears from the darkened hallway, which leads to the bedroom and the bathroom and an office kind of area, and where he keeps his pistols. And she screamed at him, "Call 911. Why aren't you calling 911? The defendant did nothing. The defendant told her to leave Chase alone. He's fine. You'll hear the expletives, which I won't insert here for you. But there were a few. Why aren't you calling 911? Screaming at the top of her lungs. Oh, then the defendant has a phone in his hand and fumbling around, trying to make it look like he's calling 911, but he didn't call 911. Summer had to leave her brother on the floor, go back down the stairs to the bedroom she was staying in, get her own phone, come back up the stairs, and call 911 on her own cell phone. And once she's on the cell phone with 911 and she's asking the dispatcher is asking her, what is the address of this event? And she gives an address which is wrong. He says to her, please repeat the address. And she doesn't know the address. And she demands of the defendant, tell me the address so I can tell them so they can come help Chase. And he doesn't do it. She has to get a piece of paper off of the island counter. And you can hear her on the 911 call reading the address with the zip code, so that she can get help for her brother from the 911 people. What's the emergency? I think that my brother's been shot in the head. She says, I think that my brother's been shot in the head. The 911 dispatcher speaks back to her. You said your brother shot himself in the head? That's not what she said. But he repeated that misstatement then and again when he called out law enforcement. He asked her where the gun was, but she said shot. She didn't know where the gun was. She never saw the gun. She couldn't tell if Chase was breathing or not. So he instructed her about how to do chest compressions. 1, 2, 1, 2. He told her where to push down on his chest and to try to keep him breathing. The 911 dispatcher is not there at the scene, seeing Chase with the gunshot wound to his head. And of course, Summer wanted him to be alive, screamed at him to stay alive. She thought what she was doing would keep him alive. But law enforcement was dispatched to a brother shot in the head, who shot himself in the head. Now, we talked about it snowing. This town of Richmond happens to be in the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office jurisdiction. But it was snowing. And it's 4 o'clock in the morning. And the St. Croix County Sheriff's deputies who were available were a long way from 1489 to 142nd Street. So, Sergeant Jake Sather was working at the New Richmond Police Department, and he was asked if he would please try to respond sooner than the sheriff's office could get there. And he did so. He left the New Richmond City Police Department building and went to that address. And it still took about 6 minutes to get there. He arrived about 4:20. And so interestingly, when he got there and the defendant greeted him at the door, the defendant had with him 2 dogs. Nowhere on the 911 call is there the sound of any dogs, nor did Summer see any dogs after Chase was shot. But the defendant has to bring the dogs to the front door. And now, Sergeant Sather's dealing with the defendant with dogs, the defendant who has no shirt on, the defendant who has dogs. He's got Summer screaming at the top of her lungs up at the top of the stairs where Chase is laying on the floor, telling him to please not die, and pushing out 1, 2, 1, 2, so that the dispatcher can hear what she's saying. Put the dogs away! You can even hear it briefly on Sergeant Sather's recording, a recording he made as part of his job, so that people who might need to know what happened that day can listen to it. Sather knows it's going to be a few more minutes till he has backup. And right now, he's the only officer in a room with a defendant, with dogs, with Summer screaming at her brother who's shot in the head, and Sather, just from looking at him, could tell from the gunshot wound to his head that, blew away part of his head, that he was clearly dead. He could hear her 1, 2, 1, 2. Where's the gun? Sergeant Sather needs to secure the firearm so that when the emergency medical technicians, paramedics come to the scene to try to help Chase, they're on their way, they're coming, it's snowing, that there's no concern that someone will take that gun and use it. Where is the gun? The defendant doesn't tell him where the gun is. Summer doesn't know where the gun is. Sather checks. No one's telling him where the gun is. He checks Chase, finds out that he's dead. He looks around for the gun. No one's telling him where the gun is. Finally, down the hall to the defendant's bedroom, where he keeps his pistols, to the bathroom, about 10 feet, 10 inches down the hall, that's where he sees the pistol on the floor. And security, safety first. The paramedics, the paralegals, the paramedics and the emergency medical technician are coming, and he secures that pistol. You'll see Sergeant Sather's quite a tall man, and he was able to pick that pistol up and put it on top of the refrigerator to keep it secure. Time and again, where's the gun? And the defendant doesn't tell him. Sergeant Coleman from the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office and emergency medical technician Beckstrom arrived at about the same time, and they're greeted at the door by Summer, who, understandably, given the fact that she was focused on Chase, couldn't understand what all this was about the pistol. She's not a law enforcement officer. And she's screaming at the emergency medical technician and her partner, please come, please help my brother. So now, with multiple police officers there and the ability to get the scene under control, the officers can now try to assess what happened. Summer is taken downstairs to the lower level, there's like a living room area at the lower level that has like a fireplace in it, and she's spoken to there, and she just wants to come back upstairs and meet with her brother. The officers are trying to figure out what happened. St. Croix County Sheriff's Officer Duran arrives on the scene. He's prepared to take pictures, and he also has a recorder that he turns on. But the officers are trying to figure out what happened here. What happened to this young man? Where were you? They're asking the defendant. Where were you? Well, the defendant's rubbing his belly, making observations about his physique. Tell us where you were. And in the course of that conversation, he tells the officers that he was right there, which is what he said on the 911 call. And Deputy Duran tries to take photos of the scene, tries to take photos of the defendant who has no shirt on, who has blood on him. He had laid down on Chase at some point just before EMT Beckstrom came into the home. None of the blood anywhere in this house is anyone's but Chase Fleischauer. None. But the defendant objects to having pictures taken of his body with what turns out to be his son's blood on him. He objects so strenuously that he asks, and you'll have to pardon me, but this is what he said, he asks Sheriff's Department Officer Chase Duran, do you want some cock? And he lowers his pajamas 3 times to expose himself to the police officer who's trying to figure out what happened to his son. Pulls his pants up and down, laughing hysterically, aggressively with his arms up. Meanwhile, Summer Johnson Fleischauer is screaming at the defendant, her father, what have you done to him? And he never answers her. He wouldn't even tell the police his own name. He said to the police, well, tell me what you got. What happened? The defendant, I have no idea. Even though he also told the officers he was in the kitchen when it happened, which is right where Chase was. On the 911 call, he's heard telling Chase, I watched him do it. Telling the 911 operator, I watched him do it. Eventually, to secure this scene, the officers had to get the defendant out of the house and into a squad car. The officers got Summer Johnson Fleischauer out of the house. The ambulance came back. The ambulance wasn't really needed for Chase, he was dead. The ambulance came back so that Summer Johnson Fleischauer could be secured in the ambulance away from this scene, which is practically the whole house. And then Coleman and Sergeant Sather were able to secure the pistol from on top of the refrigerator, and Deputy Duran was able to take photographs of the pistol that we now know is the pistol that was used to shoot Chase. As they went around the scene, Sergeant Sather and Deputy Coleman, they went around the scene, went around through the living room, through the dining room table that was pushed up against the wall, past the dog dish with some plants that had been knocked down onto the dog dishes, and could see out onto the snow on the deck outside, that there were footprints that sort of circled around and came back inside. They confirmed that no one else had ever come into that house or left it until they arrived. Eventually that day, investigator Jim Mikla from the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office, as well as investigator Sean DeMewling, arrived with investigator Carrie Rose, and eventually the Wisconsin State Crime Lab mobile crime scene unit. Photographs were taken, physical evidence was secured, including an ejected shell casing from over in the living room, an ejected, actually unfired bullet from over in the living room, and an ejected shell casing from down the steps by the front door of the house under a rug. All 7 of the defendant's firearms, including the PT-709, which is the subject of this litigation, were secured, and the victim's body, Chase's body, was taken for x-rays, and then to the Ramsey County Coroner's Office, medical examiner's office for an autopsy. Deputy Coleman asked Sergeant Sather where he had found the pistol. And he gave him a piece of paper, which he drew a pistol on, so that he could say to Sergeant Sather, put this where you found the pistol. And so down the hall, past the refrigerator, past the island, down the hall, about 10 feet, 10 inches away from Chase's body, Sergeant Sather placed that piece of paper to show where the PT-709 semi-automatic handgun, fully loaded except for the ejected shell and the ejected shell casing, had been found. The wound that Chase suffered to his left forehead was not a contact wound. The unfired cartridge and the expended shell casing both came from the PT-709. There are no identifiable fingerprints on the Taurus PT-709 because of the nature of the pistol and the bluing that's done to keep the pistol in working order. There's no DNA on the pistol except for Chase's DNA just inside the opening of the barrel, and the barrel is inside the sliding top part on the top that cocks the gun. This is the defendant's pistol. There's a holster that matches it in the defendant's bedroom down the hall with a magazine, a fully loaded magazine that matches the pistol also in that bedstand, ready for use if anyone ever had to break into this house. Over by the table, the dining room table pushed up against the wall, there's a gray t-shirt. Over by the entryway, downstairs to the front door, there's Chase's black t-shirt. Over here, the gray t-shirt is the one that says, "You're killing me, Small." And it's got Chase's blood all over it. The police are getting, all day on the 14th, the police are getting a search warrant for the house, a search warrant to gather material from the defendant's person. And it's not till April 15th, after the snow clears and everything else, that a autopsy is able to be done on Chase. An autopsy done by Dr. Kelly Mills of the Ramsey County Medical Examiner's Office, an 11-year, 12-year veteran medical examiner, 5,000 autopsies. Chase was bleeding before he was shot. Chase was so injured before he was shot that in bleeding, he was walking around in his sock feet with holes in his socks that left a very clear imprint on the floor. They're both those blood stains. They literally are blood in a circle with a hole in the middle because that's where the hole was in his sock. But he couldn't have been walking after he was shot because of where he was shot in the head. Boom, down, on the floor, done, never moving again. Unless moved by somebody else. Like the farmer when she came. But she, Dr. Mills, and Dr. McGee, her boss, 40-year veteran, forensic pathologist and medical examiner in Ramsey County, had the chance to observe Chase his body, the photographs, the x-rays, to know that the gun was 10 feet away, therefore not at his feet, not dropped by him. And to say that the cause of death was a gunshot. The manner of death is homicide, not accident. Something about this beating, Chase's reaction to it, whether it was to not fight back, the defendant has no injuries.
Object to this, Your Honor, as argument.
Sustained. Caution, Mr. Kaiser.
And what we know Chase said was, I will never hit my father. For whatever reason, the defendant chose to introduce a pistol to a fistfight and decided to bring that gun there out of his bedroom, where the holster is, where the ammunition is, where his social security card is, and where his passport are. And by doing so, at the level of intoxication he was suffering, created an unreasonable and substantial risk of death or great bodily harm to Chase on that day. And he was aware of that risk. It was
Judge,
his
I object to
pistol.
this as argument.
The evidence will show, Mr. Kaiser.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence will show, and at the conclusion of this trial, I will urge you to find that this defendant criminally, recklessly, while armed, caused the death of his son. And we'll ask you to find that based on the judge's instructions and based on your good common sense.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.